Have you ever wondered why your social media post on your painting isn't getting any reach or engagement? That question's come up a lot lately inside both my paid programs and in the free Facebook group, Artwork Living. So I wanted to talk about that just a little bit to give y'all some insights into how the algorithm actually works, what the whole reason is to actually be on social media, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, and where those things may be going wrong as you're posting about your own paintings, about your own art. So, first thing up, remember we're talking about Facebook business pages here, not your personal profile. The first thing I want to make sure everybody understands is what's a Facebook business page for anyway? It's there for moving people, your ideal collectors, from social media to your website and email list. It's that simple. You want to reach your ideal collector, your ideal client. You want to move them first to be a follower on your Facebook or your Instagram account or Pinterest, whichever one it is that you're on. And then you want to move them to visit your website. You don't want to simply rely on social media. You need to have your own platform. And once they're on your website, you want to invite them to become a follower of your email list, which is called a subscriber. Then you can invite them to purchase via your email list. That's the beauty of it. We have global reach as artists now because of social media. So it's not about reaching people who live down the street or local galleries, although you might do that as well. It is about reaching beyond your local physical confines and touching people who are your ideal collectors or your ideal clients. So the biggest thing, the single biggest impediment I see to people growing their reach and their engagement on their Facebook pages is tying the value of a Facebook page to the wrong numbers. I see this happen all the time, and I've been guilty of it too back when I first started. But I've been on Facebook as a business page for more than 10 years now. So I've picked up some things to move beyond that mindset. Here's what I mean by that. If you are comparing the reach and engagement on your Facebook page to the reach, engagement, and interactions that you're getting inside of art groups, you're committing a huge big error because you're comparing apples to oranges. They ain't the same thing, and they're not the same audiences by a long shot. Here's how they differ. Your Facebook page probably, especially if you're starting out, has fewer followers than that art group. So let's use an example here. If you are in the Artwork Living Facebook group, my free Facebook group, we have nearly 19,000 people in that Facebook group. And if you have a business page that has 200 followers on it, comparing the interaction on the two, just from a numbers standpoint, is not going to give you clear feedback. The algorithm shows a post, whether it's on a group, your personal profile, your business page, on average to about 10% of the people that follow you. 10% of the people in the group, 10% of the people on the page, 10% of your friends. And that's not Facebook trying to get you. That is the fact that there are millions and millions of people on Facebook. Facebook cannot show your post to everybody who follows you or everybody you're friends with or everybody in the Facebook group. It's not physically possible because it goes through the feed that fast when there are that many people. They have to use the algorithm. So the algorithm shows your post to the people who have indicated, given a sign to the algorithm, they're interested in what you're posting. And how do they do that? They do that by reading it and taking an action. They do that by clicking or a share or an emoticon, any one of those. They do that by commenting and engaging. They do that by sharing. On Instagram, it's by sharing like into their stories, by saving it, or by liking it. So people who see your stuff are people who have interacted with your page before. And then the other group that might get shown it are people who the social media platform knows are similar to the people who've engaged with it. And that's because they only want to show stuff to people who are interested in that thing. They want people to have a good experience. They don't want to show stuff to people that they're not interested in. They are going to feed it to people who have engaged with your stuff before. It is a small percentage. So those of you who've only got a few hundred followers, if you are getting more than 10% engagement and reach, you're doing fantastic. There are ways to get it to more of your ideal collectors, but I want you to understand what that reach number means to begin with. And don't keep comparing it to what happens in an art group. Art groups are not your ideal collectors. They are your ideal client if you teach painting, if you teach how to make art. But they are not your ideal client if you're selling paintings. Yes, some of them will buy. That's absolutely true. But not the vast majority of them. So comparing what happens on your business page to what happens in an art group is a recipe for frustration. Don't do that to yourself, because what happens is you set yourself up for failure. You set an expectation in your head and in your heart that you're going to get the same kind of numbers on your page, and that is not what is going to happen. So get grounded in reality and how the algorithm works from the get-go. It's not against you. They're not trying to force everybody to buy ads. They actually really want to share your great content with people who are interested. But we have to do the work to help them find the folks who are interested and make sure they're really in alignment with what we're offering. That brings us to the next couple of points. The second big issue that I see is people having followers who are not their ideal collector or their ideal client. It does not help you to inflate your numbers by inviting all your friends and family and neighbors to follow your page. In fact, it will hurt you, because what will happen is that Facebook will keep showing your stuff to people who are similar to the people who are already interacting with it. And if they're family and friends who never buy art, then Facebook is showing it to more of those same kind of people. And you can build up 1,200 people who follow your page, but it may not do you any good because they're not the right fit collectors. You need your ideal collectors, not just anybody. If you don't remember how to do that from a past challenge that we had in the Facebook group, we're going to be doing it again in September. Make sure you get on the waiting lists to go through the challenge again. But you need your ideal collectors. And there are ways and strategies to tap into who those folks are. But you got to focus like a laser beam onto that. Don't get distracted by what's going on in groups. Not art groups. You want groups where your ideal collectors might be hanging out. Third thing, that's posting at a time of day when your ideal collector is not online, when they don't typically engage on Facebook. So one person I saw in the group was wondering why she wasn't getting any reach and getting any interaction. She's posting at what looks like it's 7 a.m. So my guess is the people who would interact with her post are not awake yet and on Facebook. People don't tend to, on Facebook, get on until really about 8:30 or 9. And on Instagram, even a little bit later. You really do have to be very aware of the time of day that you're posting, and know that when you post outside of the time when your people are online, you're not going to get as much reach. You're not going to get as much engagement. That's the first thing that I tell people to change. If you're not getting engagement with the posts, change the time you're posting. Look back at posts that you've made in the past. Look for ones that got more engagement and look at what time of day they were posted, because that's a better time for you to be posting than the one you're posting at right now. If you don't know what time they're generally engaging with and getting on most social media, it's going to be 9:30 or 10, around 2 p.m., and around 6 p.m. When you get too far out of that time zone, you run the risk of not having any eyeballs hit your work. For example, the other day I had to post late in the evening because it had been a busy day and I hadn't scheduled it ahead like I really love to do. I was posting out of the time period where I knew that my audience would interact, and I got lower reach and I got lower engagement. Not because the art is bad, not because the art is not going to appeal to the ideal collector, because they're not on. So test out different times until you find the time where they are on. Fourth thing is not having a clear focus and intent for what you're doing on that page. We've talked in the Facebook group about niching down and how important it is. And here's why. If you post on a broad range of things on your Facebook business page, you confuse the people who are visiting it. And then when they're confused, you confuse the algorithm. For example, if I'm posting my normal landscape paintings and I suddenly post a completely non-objective abstract painting that doesn't look like my landscape paintings, it's not going to get any engagement because it's going to surprise my audience. It's not what they were expecting, and they're going to be really confused, and a confused mind doesn't engage and doesn't interact. Does that mean you can't make abstract, completely different work? No, but it means you need 2 pages then. Or you need to only promote one body of work at a time. But if you try to appeal to 2 radically different niches on the same business page, it's not going to work because you're going to confuse both of those audiences. So narrow down what you're doing. It doesn't mean you can't post still lives or figurative work if you normally do landscapes. But it means that if you normally do those landscapes, you shouldn't be posting abstract work. If you normally do completely non-objective abstract work, posting a photorealist painting is probably not going to get you much traction. Understand that people are looking and expecting a certain kind of thing, and if they don't see it, they're not going to interact with it because that's not why they were there. Get a different page for that. For me, y'all know I love horses. If I tried to have a Facebook page for landscape painting, horses, and Southern cooking, I would totally confuse my audience. Does that mean I can't ever talk about horses or Southern food? No, not at all. But it means that I can't make my Facebook page say at the top that it's about landscape painting, horses, and Southern food, because I'm not going to attract anybody to that, or a handful, and they're going to be just confused, or I'm going to attract the wrong people. So niche down. The last thing that I want to talk about, you're not being conversational in the post, the caption that you're writing. Remember that social media is social. That means that people are there to build relationships. And the kind of posts that you make on a business profile or page need to be just as conversational as the ones that you post on your personal profile. It means that you've got to think of it as being like a cocktail party where you're going to invite conversation and you're going to interact. You're going to actually follow up on what somebody says. You're going to ask a leading question. You're going to engage. Because if you don't engage, I promise you they're not going to engage. It's a two-way street. We have to engage and they have to engage. So look at your caption. Is there anything in there that invites people to make a response to it? Is there anything in there that's conversational, that's more of a question? I'll use an example. So a couple of days ago, I made a post because, again, I was in a really big hurry, and we all get that way sometimes. But know when you do it, and I knew it, I was not going to get as much engagement. I wrote about the painting, but it was 2 or 3 lines, and there was nothing in there that asked my audience a question. There was nothing in there that said, have you ever seen anything like this? Or what are your thoughts around this? Let me know what you think. If you don't do that, they're not going to do it. You have to invite the engagement and the response. So look back at your own captions. Conversation squashers, or are they conversation starters? Because if they're a squasher, that's why you're not getting engagement. You're not inviting it. Make sure you invite it, because when you do, that's when you're going to find your ideal collectors. That's when you're going to begin to build real relationships, and people will get excited about becoming your followers, excited enough they'll want to join your email list. As part of that inviting engagement, you're inviting a response. So think about the call to action being an invitation. You're inviting people to let you know what their thoughts are. Have you ever felt that way? Have you ever seen something like that? Have you ever been to that place? Have you ever watched something like that? When was the last time you saw something like that? Make it a conversational call to action. All of those were calls to action, but they don't sound like a demand that somebody go do something. When you invite people to join your email list, make sure it again sounds like an invitation. Those 5 things again, really quickly. Don't tie the value of a Facebook page to the wrong numbers. Make sure you're actually comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges. And remember how the algorithm actually works. Number 2 is the followers who aren't your ideal collectors are holding you back. Don't invite people who are not your ideal collectors to follow your page. You don't have to go boot people off, but you need to go chase down the people who are the right kind. Number 3 is posting at times of day where your ideal collectors are not engaging. Number 4 is not having a clear intent on what your Facebook page is or your Instagram account is for. And number 5, make sure you're initiating a real conversation and you're including a call to action. If you do all 5 of those things, your reach will start going up and your engagement will go up because you'll be feeding the algorithm. What you want to do is feed the algorithm. That's working with Facebook. When you do that, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, all of them run by algorithms. Twitter, LinkedIn, all of them function on fairly similar algorithms. And when you do that, they'll reward you. So make sure you're working with the social media platform and not setting yourself up to be at odds with it, because that's not ever going to work. It doesn't mean you have to go buy ads. Ads are great, but all the platforms are looking for good content. Ads will enhance what you're already doing, but the ads are not the only answer. In fact, I wouldn't run ads until you get the organic thing figured out, because you're wasting a lot of money. I hope that's helpful. And I want you to remember that, yeah, you can do this, that there are your ideal collectors out there. There are people who are interested in what you're working on. but it's just like meeting people in a crowded room who you've never seen before. You've got to follow the same basic steps in order to begin to build that relationship. So, hope that's helpful, and I look forward to talking with you again soon. Happy painting, everybody.